Good morning to the Bookmap community. My name is Charles. I am focused on the ES, the NQ, and how they move through the two-way auction process. Thank you for joining me on today's live stream. Well, what a day. What a day we are set up for here today. One for the record books, or anyway, one that should at least be pretty fun to trade. So, as we are all well aware, the ruling reason, the main focus of the market right now is the tariffs. On Friday, on a purely technical basis, the market looked like it was making its way back to all-time highs. There was a very real possibility this market wanted to go poke up and make new all-time highs. But then, of course, Trump made the announcement about tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico, and the market sold off from there. Closed at the low with a spike down, very bearish to see. And then that selling continued throughout the weekend, taking us all the way back down here to where we are opening today. Okay, so the short answer is we don't know what comes next. Nobody does. Anyone that's trying to use technical analysis to make predictions about where the market might go over the weeks ahead is full of dookie. Don't listen to that person. Don't trust a thing they say. TA is not reliable in moments like this, where there is a more powerful ruling reason, when there is something else that is a greater force on the market than the technicals, which is the emotions, right? When the world is this emotional and people are this panicked and this worried, and they feel this much uncertainty about what the future is going to hold, they will sell their stocks. Okay, it's just what people do. When they get worried, when they get panicky, they rush back to cash and they just want to be in cash. So there is a very real chance the selling can continue this week and we can take this market much lower. But that doesn't mean we have to. It doesn't mean we have to take the market lower. If the conversations come out that Trump is going to do some kind of deal and the tariffs aren't going to be as bad, I mean, any one little piece of news could turn this market right around and get it heading back up. So knowing that that exists, knowing that there is this world where the market could continue to sell off all week long, and this world where the market could reverse and head right back up to where it was on Friday, we as intraday traders need to be open to anything happening. So there's a quote that I love from, what is his name? Anyway, a quote that I love where they talk about this idea of being like water. Okay. The idea is you want to be like water. Water is formless. It's shapeless. It becomes whatever vessel it's put inside of. If you put water inside of a cup, it becomes a cup. When you put water inside of a teapot, it becomes a teapot. The water becomes the shape of whatever environment you put it in. Water can flow or water can crash. Water can be anything. Water is strong enough to carve the Grand Canyon slowly over time. So what we want to do on a day like today is we want to be water. We want to be open to the market doing anything, which means we can't be convinced the market is doing anything, right? As soon as you become convinced, you understand what the market is doing today is the moment the market will flip in reverse and do exactly the opposite. So the best thing to do today is be very open to whatever information the market gives us from its perspective. Okay. So, as I talked about in the email this morning with the members of the brigade, to me, the bigger focus is very simply this. We are sitting at a large cumulative volume node right now, okay, which is somewhere around 59.80, okay? We are either going to turn around and head up to the next large volume node around 60.25, or we are going to head lower to the next large node around 58.95. Okay. We are going to one of those two nodes next. How we get there, we don't know. We may just chop and grind and chop and grind and chop and grind and then eventually break one way or the other. We may get the market opening today and heading straight up or straight down. Anything can happen. So we want to be open to any possibility. If we get a day today where the market basically just keeps grinding and grinding around inside this overnight range and it kind of goes nowhere, that is the market makers, the larger players, forcing the market to stay stuck in a spot. Why would they be doing that? Because they're trying to just burn theta. They're trying to just let time pass while they wait for more information about what's going to happen with the tariffs, and they don't want anything crazy to happen with the market. So if we start getting a super tight range-bound day where the market is just grinding inside this overnight range, I am going to be looking for what I call bot reversal trades, which are trades at the upper or lower end of the range with extremely tight stops, where I'm only risking a point or two to get into the trade. Okay? If we have a crazy volatile day where the market just starts going up and reverses and comes all the way back down and then reverses and comes all the way back up, I'm going to start trading that reversion to the mean. I'm going to look for areas to get short above the value area, targeting to move back to the POC, and areas to get long below the value area to target to move back to the POC. And if we start to trend a certain direction and we're trending higher or we're trending lower, I will take momentum trades in the direction of the trend. I am not married right now, 25 minutes before the market opens, to the idea of trading any of this. I am open, I am fluid, I am willing to take whatever information the market gives me when that opening bell rings and trade according to that. Now, if you wanted me to guess right now what I think is going to happen, I think we're probably going to chop in a tight range. I think we're probably just going to kind of grind around inside this overnight range for a little bit, at least for an hour or two, to kind of give the market a chance to digest this big move to the downside. Right? Remember, for a lot of market participants, when the market closed on Friday, we were all the way up here. So they're going to need some time to process this change in market value and say to themselves, do I want to get out of my longs? Do I want to add to my shorts? How do I want to adjust, this morning? So the market spending an hour or two kind of staying in a tight range to give participants a chance to figure out what they're going to do would make sense to me. Okay? As always, if we get to the overnight high or the overnight low, for the purposes of today, we're going to call the overnight high 59.90. It's not technically the overnight high, but for purposes today, that's what we're going to consider the overnight high. And the overnight low is down here around 59.36. Okay? So if the market opens and it works its way above the overnight high or below the overnight low, at those levels will be very important references for today. If we get to one of those levels and we get more buying, so if we get above the high and we turn it into support and the buying continues, that is very bullish to see. And we would expect that move up to that large node around 60.25. Okay. If the market opens and it looks above and it fails that level, it gets above there and it can turn into support and it comes back down, that would be very bearish and mean we are targeting to move down towards the lower end of the overnight range. And then the exact same thing at the overnight low. If the market opens and it gets below that overnight low and gets new selling, we're looking for that larger move to the downside. If we get a look below and fail, we're looking for the market to turn around and head back up towards the highs. Okay? As I said, I don't think the market is going to open and instantly do that. I think we're going to spend some time going sideways in here first. But whenever we get to that overnight high or that overnight low, that is a key level for today, because that's where we find out where new participants today are putting their bets. Where are they putting their money? Are they going long, new participants buying this dip, or are they selling into it? Are new participants looking for that larger pullback? And we will find that out at either the overnight high or the overnight low. Any questions on any of that from the chat? Any questions from the chat? Any questions? Also, for those of you market profile nerds out there, I'm going to change my weak and poor references that we pass through in the overnight to just being regular references, but I'm going to keep them there because these lows from the last few lows that we blew right through could all become resistance when the market comes back up. So I'm going to keep these lows on the chart, even though technically we did pass through them, because I suspect they could act as resistance on a retest. Fear and panic in the air. Willie T is here. Good morning to you. Jay, good morning. He says, traders, it's a beautiful day in the big casino. I don't know about beautiful, but it's definitely a day, and it's definitely a big casino. We'll find out how beautiful it is. Scalping Strategy, good morning to you. Welcome. DNK in the house. Kevin is here. Yang. Bruce Lee, that's who it was. Thank you so much. Yeah, the quote was from Bruce Lee. Be like water, my friends. Eon Futures, good morning to you. Welcome. Pradeep, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Outer Edge Trader says, do you use the whole session on the volume profile or separate out the regular trading hours profiles? Yes, I do both. So I separate out the regular trading hours and the overnight. The way I do that, very simply, regular trading hours is 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Overnight is 4 p.m. to 9:30 a.m. the next day. Okay, so that's how I split out the ranges. And I do look at volume profile for each individually. So I've got, this is like Friday's range. This and this is the overnight range. So I've got my volume profiles in there to see where the volume traded on those particular days. And then I've also got a cumulative volume profile that just takes all the volume that's ever traded at this level and smushes it all together. So I can see those large nodes. So when I'm talking about moving to one of those larger nodes, when I talk about the idea that we are either heading up to this one or down to this one, that is the cumulative volume that I'm referring to. Oh boy in the house, good morning to you. Mr. Ree is here. Welcome, welcome. Griff, good morning to you. And Mindset says, are you taking live trades here? And the answer is no, I do not. I do not trade on the screen for you guys to see, as that just fucks my psychology all up. When I know other people are watching me, the added pressure makes me make bad decisions and make mistakes. But here's what I will do. I will tell you my bias. Whether I think the market is going to go up, I'm bullish. I think the market is going to go down, I'm bearish. Or I'm expecting rotation or chop. I will tell you that, which tells you how to trade. And I will show you where I think the support and resistance levels are, which are places to enter trades or take profits on trades. Okay, so I'll give you all the pieces. I just won't literally say, go long right now, do it. I won't do that. But I will say, I'm bullish, looking for support at this level. And then you know, that's a level to consider buying. Any other questions? Anybody that's new and has no clue what they're looking at on the screen and they're so confused and they're like, Charles, can you explain some of this to me? Let me know. I'd be happy to explain. As far as Bookmap is concerned, we've got liquidity all over the place right now. This is not what you would normally see. These large nodes in these random places, both above and below price. So obviously there's a lot of hedging happening here. And I just think everyone's waiting to see what happens when that opening bell rings. So I have a feeling a lot of this liquidity will change very quickly after the opening bell rings. But for now, we got just as much above as below. So that's really no edge. Any other questions? We got 15 minutes till the market opens. We got 73 people hanging out, only 18 thumbs up. So really the question on my mind is, what's it going to take to get that like? Come on, baby, make me earn it. Oh, yeah. John Q says, I really hate days with 9 a.m. red folder news too. Yep. Nothing we can do about the news. Nothing we can do about random things that happen in the world that cause the market to change. All we can do is be ready to change with it and not stay stuck in previous ideas. Pradeep says, first day with you. Excited. Well, we're excited to have you. Willie T says, we got some numbers at 10 a.m. Griff says, it's interesting that the ES is chopping around the 2025 open. I'm not sure that that's really anything in particular. I that's probably just a coincidence in my mind. I don't think there's any deeper meaning there. Len says, hi, Charles. What is the charting tool on the left side of the screen? It's a great question. So on the left side, we have a market profile chart. And on the right side, we have a bookmap chart. So the left side of the screen is what I use to read the price action. Price action being, where does the price go? How much time does it spend there? And how much volume does it bring in? That is what is actually happening in the market minute by minute, and the information that that gives us. And then over here on the right side of the screen is Bookmap, which I use to see the liquidity in the market. Liquidity is orders that could potentially trade at a particular level. And for me, it's really about looking for changes that happen in the liquidity. If the market is doing something and the liquidity looks a certain way, as long as it keeps looking like that, it will keep doing that. So let's say, for example, the market opens this morning and we keep having just tons of liquidity above and below price like this, like we have right now. And the market starts chopping sideways, right? And it just keeps chopping and it keeps chopping, and we still have just as much liquidity above and below price. Guess what the market's going to keep doing? It's going to keep chopping and chopping and chopping. Well, what happens if all of a sudden a bunch of the liquidity disappears from below price and they start to pile on a bunch more above? Well, at that point, they are either going to turn that into a magnet that pulls price up to it, or it's going to be a magnet that pushes price away. And so if we can see that change happen suddenly, right now, in this moment, oh my God, something just changed in the liquidity, it can give us an edge in our trading. As far as the market profile is concerned, the main concept I'm thinking about in terms of the market profile is, where is the market doing business? Where the market does business is very, very important. What do I mean by the term does business? The market has one job and one job alone, and that is to get contracts to trade hands. The market doesn't care if you're going long or you're going short. It just wants you to go something. It just wants you to get in a trade. That's all the market cares about. There tends to be levels where a lot of participants will choose to do business. Whether they are going long or going short, they will tend to do business at certain levels over and over again. So for one thing, if you know where those levels are, where the market likes to do business, you have a target for the market to go to depending on where it has momentum. So for example, right now, that level to me, as we discussed, is the overnight high and the overnight low. If this market wants to go higher today, first it has to get to the overnight high. That's where we will find out what business there is to be had up there. Why are we looking at that level? Because we ran out of business the last time we were there, right? Tried to push up into it, got smacked down. Tried to push up into it, smacked down, smacked down, smacked down, smacked down again and again all day yesterday and in the overnight last night, okay? So that tells us if the market gets up to that overnight high today, we can squeeze all those sellers. Everybody that was shorting and shorting and shorting and shorting in here, we can squeeze them. So if we get to that overnight high and we start to see new buying there, what do we assume is going to happen? Market's going to go up, right? Because they're going to squeeze all those sellers. Well, in the same regard, what if the market gets up there to that overnight high and it doesn't get new buying, right? And it turns around and it starts coming back down into the overnight range. Well, then it's just doing more of this. We've still got more sellers up here waiting to smack the market down again. So we know we're going to keep chopping. We're going to keep grinding. Okay. So being able to recognize where is that level, it is both a target if we have momentum up to get there. That's a place where the market is likely to go. And then what happens when we get there tells us what comes next. Are we going to reverse and come back in, or are we going to keep going? So that's what I use the market profile for, is to understand where are the areas where business is likely to happen, right? So then when we get there, I can wait and see what happens, and that tells me what to expect next. So the Bookmap is giving me indications that I'm right or wrong. So for example, I mean, this doesn't work right now because we got just liquidity everywhere. But let's say we had a large node of liquidity up here and just a very small node of liquidity down here. And I'm watching the price move its way up towards this larger node of liquidity, right? I'm going to assume that's where the market is going. It's going to go to that larger node of liquidity. I'm going to be long with my take profit target where that larger node is. But now let's say on the move up, that starts to disappear all of a sudden, and they start to pile on more liquidity down here. Well, then I expect that the market's going to reverse and come back down. It's going to run out of steam before it gets there. So I'm going to go ahead and take profits on my long and wait for more information. Okay. So the price action tells me where the market is doing business and what business to look for when we get there. The Bookmap shows me the odds that we will get there or that we won't. And it also shows me when the market changes. When does something change that I need to be aware of? Maybe the market's just been grinding in a range, but all of a sudden something changes in Bookmap. It's about to start trending or liquidating, right? And vice versa. Any other questions in the 7 minutes we have left before the market opens? Freddie says, have we filled the 114 gap? No, we have not. So we are actually opening all the way above that. So when the market tests previous week references, we consider a gap a week reference. When it tests them in the overnight, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what we do with them in the regular trading hours. So right now, in the regular trading hours, we're opening above that gap. So it's still unfilled. If we were to head down today, then it would be filled. Okay. Any other questions? Good morning, Nap. Welcome to you. Eon Future says 100%, Charles. I'm going to watch the volume and the delta as price moves towards that gap. As always, yeah, that is the thing to watch. And for me today, I wouldn't care about the top of the gap. I wouldn't care about 59.53. It's that overnight low that matters. So we can get down into the gap, get new selling, and that just gets us to the overnight low, and then it reverses and comes back up. So I wouldn't be truly bearish, and I certainly wouldn't be looking for a gap fill back down to 59.10 unless we got new selling below that overnight low. And just in case anyone is thinking right now the market has to go down today, I'm not saying it won't go down. Obviously, that's the highest probability is that we're going to go lower today. But just know it doesn't have to. Even if it's going to go lower in the days ahead, it doesn't have to today. We can have a cooling off day where we balance off the momentum we already got over the weekend. And there's two ways to balance off momentum. One is with time, where we could just go sideways at lower prices, and the other is with price. We can pull back up today. Even if the market bigger picture is going to go down, we can still get a rally first before we get the next wave of selling. So don't go into it today assuming the minute that opening bell rings, this market is going to start selling off like crazy, because that's not how markets work. They often do the opposite of what everyone is expecting. So if everyone's expecting a sell-off this morning, the odds of that happening are much less. Okay. So as I said, I'm expecting chop and grind inside the overnight range. And I think you should be too. But either way, we'll find out in 4 minutes. Exciting times. Mindset, does Bookmap have time frames like TradingView? No, Bookmap doesn't work like that. It's based on how zoomed in you are or zoomed out. It reorganizes the information based on that. So you can zoom all the way in and be looking at milliseconds, fractions of a single second, and be monitoring changes in the bid and the ask within a fraction of a second. Or you could zoom way out and you can look at, the whole day. How has the price changed over the whole day? It is the same thing with the y-axis. You can zoom way in and you can just see what's been happening over this 20-point range, or you can zoom way out and see what's happening over a 500-point range, depending on what you want. And you just zoom in to get the information that you're looking for. Can I get a zoom? Zoom-addy, zoom. Kevin says, Charles, what are your thoughts on filling the gap to the upside? That seems very unlikely to me today. It's not impossible. It is absolutely not impossible. But my guess is this large cumulative node right here that I talked about as a target to the upside today, around 60.25. My guess is that will be resistance. And then the market will either go sideways from there or turn around and start heading lower. I don't think we would make it all the way back up to yesterday's range. But of course, if we get back to this large node and we're seeing signs of more buying up there, then yes, we can target that gap fill. But gaps this large often don't fill on the first day anyway. And you add to that the amount of uncertainty, right? To get people to go long, you have to convince them to trust that the market is going to keep going up. It's very hard to convince anyone today the market is definitely going to go up, right, in the weeks and months ahead, because there's just no one fucking knows. There's so much uncertainty with the world economies at this moment because of these tariffs that, everybody's in a wait and see mode. It's very hard to convince people to take price back to new all-time highs in wait and see mode. That requires bullishness. That requires excitement. And I just don't think we have that. So the odds of a gap fill to the upside seem very slim to me today. Not a move to the upside. That's totally doable. But to fill the gap, probably not. Griff says, thoughts on the balance area on the weekly for ES and NQ? So I'll dive into that. We can take a look, but I don't think it matters. Again, this is not what the market is doing right now is not normal, healthy balance in a range. It is panicking. It is something very, very different. So what's important to understand is that we had all this balance happening. We made a lower low, okay, which meant either the market was going to sell off much lower or was going to turn around and start making new highs. We barely, by the skin of our teeth, made a higher high, and now we've got all this. This is not normal balance right now. This is just uncertainty. Just people don't know which way to bet right now. They don't know where the market's going to be 3 months from now. So using TA doesn't work quite as well on longer time frames, when on the shorter time frame, no one has any idea what's going to happen. Okay. So as I said, I am now looking for chop inside the overnight range. So I'll be looking for resistance up around 59.80, and I'll be looking for support down around 59.50. And kind of expecting the market to bounce between those two. As we discussed, if the market is able to get through the resistance above and get to that overnight high around 59.90, then we'll have an opportunity to see a change in the market, where either we get new buying and we continue higher, or we get a look above and fail and we continue sideways. Once we get to that overnight high, we will find out. In the middle, it's a diddle, right? In the middle, it could go up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down 50 times. And drive you nuts before it finally makes whatever move it's going to make. So I see us as in a chop zone. And that means they'll probably chop it up. I'll be keeping an eye on how many icebergs we get in here as compared to moves that happen without an iceberg. Remember that in my mind, there's two ways the market could balance using time today. One would be a very large volatile moves up and down all day long. The other would be staying in a very tight range, which would be sort of more, options market manipulated. If that's going to happen, we'll see tons of icebergs on both sides of the market. So that is something else to keep an eye on today. Okay, so we're getting some resistance near that overnight high. The next question is, can they turn the halfback at 59.77 into support? There's no odds as to whether they will or not, but if they do turn this into support, we'll be looking for the next push to get through that overnight high. So can they hold 59.77 or do we get more chop? Thank you to Stephen from Bookmap, who told me the name was Bruce Lee on the quote this morning. If you are hanging out right now in the Discord for Bookmap and you want to interact with me, if you look up a little ways above, you'll find a tab that says Futures-Charles. If you just quickly click over to that tab, write out your question, and then click back to the other tab where you can watch the stream, I will answer your questions from there. So if you are in the Discord, look for Futures-Charles and ask away. Eon, appreciate you. Okay, so if we look at Bookmap, we can see they've just started to pile on liquidity above price. Right as the market got down towards that halfback, they started to pile on the liquidity above. Okay, so right now it looks like they're trying to scare the market away. They're trying to push the market back down with this. If the market continues back up into it, we're definitely going to be testing that overnight high. These are the types of things you want to look for. If you're at a pivotal potential support level and all of a sudden liquidity starts to push, starts to appear, what are they trying to do? Okay, moment of truth for the halfback. If we get a bounce here, we're looking to head up and test the overnight high. If we pass back through the opening price, more chop, more sideways, more grind. What's it going to be? Okay, so we are seeing support there, and we're seeing buyers step in. So it is still a chop zone, but this increases the odds that the market is going to head up to the overnight high at 59.89, and we will find out what happens next when we get there. Okay, so this is the test of the overnight high. So the question that we're asking ourselves is, what happens up here? Does the same thing that's been happening, all night last night keep happening again, where the market just gets smacked right back down? That's what we call a look above and fail. If that happens, that tells us we need to spend more time going sideways inside the overnight range. Or are we able to poke above there and stay above there, and it's already a look above and fail? Didn't even get a chance to explain. More chop, guys. More chop, more sideways, more grind. That is a weak high now, so there's a magnet to come back and test it once more. Exciting stuff. Low Key says the market right now is crazy. Even the FX market is wild. Yes. I'm telling you, fear and panic. As traders, we love and we hate these emotions. We love it because it creates opportunities, you know, in creating volatility, but we hate it because it is very uncertain how the market is going to react. And, you know, I'm not an economist. I'm not going to even try to guess what would happen if we really did implement, you know, 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada. But suffice to say, the long-term consequences could be very, very bad for both countries, for America and for those countries. So that creates fear. People are scared. And when people get scared, they make terrible decisions with their money. It's just what they do. So all of a sudden you look at the Canadian dollar and it's dropped however much, you know, overnight. It's like, that's just fear. Okay, to me, it feels like the market is setting up to liquidate lower. We are bringing in buyers up here, and we do have a weak high, and that slightly increases the odds that we're going to at least poke, you know, above the overnight high one more time. But at the same time, we're bringing in all those buyers at exactly the same level. So all it takes is one little poke below, and then doot, 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 they all get squeezed. So I think we're setting up for a liquidation and some more chop. All right, Bookmap is going dark. We're losing our liquidity here, so that tells us we got some news coming out right now at 9:45. PMIs. Thank you, Nap. So as always, when we have one of these little news drops where the liquidity goes dark, the best thing to do is just take your hands off the keyboard, step aside, give the market a minute or two, let it kind of freak out and do whatever it's going to do, then step back into the fray once again, where you'll have a better idea of what's coming next. Okay, so as the market passes back through the opening price, the odds are we're going to get a little bit of a move lower here as this turns all the screens red. I'll be looking for support around 59.50 for a bounce to come back up to the opening price. This to me feels like chop, as we discussed. It's just the market cooling off for a second, figuring out what comes next. And so you say to me, well, Charles, why do you call it chop? Why don't you just say it's bearish? You think the market is going to drop 10 points. Isn't that just bearish? Well, no, because it could drop 10 points and then turn around and go up 20 right away. So it's not that I think the market is building momentum to the downside right now. I think it just wants to chop for a while. I think it just wants to pop lower and then pull back up and just kind of squeeze people on both sides for a little bit. A little bit of squeeze, squeeze, and a little bit of squeeze, squeeze. Jay says, manufacturer PMI, the final was actually 51.2 and it was forecast to be 50.1. Dun, 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 dun. Say it ain't so. We got a question. RP says, volume filled the bottom half of the developing profile. No continuation. And the ticker lick coming in underneath. Potential for balance now inside the current low or no? I don't think we've quite made the low yet, but yes. So to me, how I would describe these markets right now, because of all the icebergs and the exact locations that they're stepping in, tons of icebergs exactly at the overnight high, and then just now tons of icebergs exactly at the opening price. I think that this is being mechanically held in place. And so I suspect it's going to trade at least for the first hour or two this morning inside the overnight range in a very tight, choppy type of way. If it is going to break and make a big move today, it will probably be after the first hour. So do I think we've made a low and this is the support and we're going to reverse back up? It could be. We could also need one more dip. That's the thing about chop. It's hard to know. It is hard to know exactly where they're going to reverse or exactly when. But I'm telling you, this is a chop zone, and so they're going to chop. Do with that information what you will. All right, Bookmap going dark again. Nap tells us we got ISM in 2 minutes. So that will be another moment. We will expect a flurry of volatility for a few seconds, but it doesn't really mean anything. Not bigger picture. Okay, here's that news volatility. Again, don't panic. Don't freak out. It's just a little flutter. It'll pass. In 2 minutes, things will slow down again. Oh my God, but Charles is moving so fast. I can't help but freak out. I feel like I have to do something right this minute. No, you don't. Just relax. You know what it is. Okay. So we did technically just make a good low, good taper, and good excess. So now I'm looking for the market to come back up through the opening price. And the same way that we discussed the importance of the halfback from above, if it turned into support, it meant we were going to the overnight high. The same thing will be true now of the halfback from below. If we push back up into it and it becomes resistance, we're looking for that next move lower. Unfortunately, I got to call it quits for the stream here today. Thank you to the fine people at Bookmap for putting this together for you guys. If you haven't pushed the thumbs up button yet, I would say now is the time to push that thumbs up button. So that's how Bookmap knows they should keep putting this stuff together for you guys, that you appreciate this and that you want more of it. So if you're not even willing to give them a thumbs up, maybe they'll stop being willing to give you this great content for free. Food for thought with the like button. If you are interested in learning more about market profile, how I trade with Bookmap, or how I look at the market as an auction process, I encourage you sign up for the Piratetraders Brigade. It's a members only group. You can see a link at the top of the page there, piratetraders.io/join. I do these live streams for the first hour every morning to guide traders and give them some insights on what to expect for the day. And we'd love to have you on board our shipwreck. So consider joining. It's $20 a month. You get 3 days for free when you sign up. So why not just sign up and check it out? All right. With that, I will say goodbye. Thank you very, very much. Members of the brigade, give me about 2 minutes and I'll see you in the private stream. As far as bigger picture, what I think the market is going to do today, I lean more bearish than bullish. But as I've said, the real important thing is what will happen at the overnight low or the overnight high. The first one was a look above and fail. So that tells us the market wants to chop. It wants to go sideways for a while. If that happens again at the overnight low, it will increase the odds we're heading back up to the current high. Okay. If we get to the overnight low and we get new selling, then we're looking for a bigger move to the downside. And as I've said, my target is this node around 58.95. I think that's where the market will go today if we get new selling below the overnight low first. Okay. Inside the overnight range, it's going to be chop, and it could be chop all day long. Remember, there is a chance that the market makers, that is the people that sell options, might force the market to stay contained today in a tight range just so that they have time to rebalance things and adjust. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a big day either direction. We can have a choppy sideways day, and the overnight high or the overnight low will tell the tale. Thank you very much, and we will see you here next week.